The night Adaeze's mother stopped breathing, the girl learned that death smells like burnt palm oil and silence. She was 12 years old, alone in their mud house, and the body on the sleeping mat had gone cold hours ago. No one came when she screamed. Their neighbors had moved away months before, tired of hearing her mother's coughing, afraid the sickness would jump into their own homes like a grasshopper. Adaeze sat in the darkness, holding her mother's hand until the roosters began to crow. When the sun finally rose, she walked to the village chief's compound and told him what had happened. The chief's wife gave her a piece of yam and some water, then sent her away. "Your mother owed money to half the village," the woman said, not unkindly. "The debt falls to you now." Adaeze didn't understand. She was a child. How could a child owe money? But she understood 3 days later when Mama Coco, the woman who sold palm wine, came to their house. "Your mother borrowed 20 cowries from me last season," Mama Coco said, her face hard as stone. "I want my money." "I don't have 20 cowries," Adaeze whispered. "I don't have any cowries at all." "Then you will work for me every day from sunrise to sunset until the debt is paid." Mama Coco was not the only one. The pepper seller came. The cloth merchant came. The woman who roasted corn came. Each person held out their hand. Each person demanded payment, and each person added Adaeze's name to a long list of debts. By the end of the first week, she owed 300 cowries to 12 different people. By the end of the first month, she realized the truth. She would never be free. She worked in Mama Coco's palm wine stall every morning, carrying heavy calabashes that made her arms shake. At midday, she swept the pepper seller's compound. In the afternoon, she fetched water for the cloth merchant. At night, she fell onto her sleeping mat so tired that she couldn't even cry. The other children in the village played games and went to the stream to swim. Adaeze watched them from behind Mama Coco's stall, her hands red and blistered from work. "Why are you standing there like a ghost?" Mama Coco snapped one afternoon. "There are customers waiting." Adaeze hurried to serve them, but her hands were shaking so badly that she dropped a calabash. Palm wine splashed everywhere, soaking into the red earth. Mama Coco's eyes went wide with rage. "That was a full calabash. Do you know how much that costs?" "I'm sorry," Adaeze said quickly. "Please, I didn't mean to." "Add 10 cowries to her debt," Mama Coco told her daughter, who kept the records on a piece of bark. 10 more cowries. Adaeze felt something break inside her chest. That night, she didn't go home. She walked to the edge of the village and sat beneath a baobab tree, looking up at the stars. Her mother used to tell her that every star was an ancestor watching over them. But if that was true, why hadn't any of them helped? "Mama," she whispered to the darkness, "I don't know what to do. The debt grows bigger every day. I work and work and work, but I only fall deeper into the hole. If this continues, I will die just like you did, poor, sick, and alone." The wind blew through the baobab leaves, making them whisper like voices. A tear rolled down Adaeze's cheek, then another. She put her head on her knees and cried, her thin shoulders shaking, her breath coming in gasps. She cried until she had no more tears. Then she wiped her face with the back of her hand and stood up. Crying wouldn't pay her debts. Crying wouldn't fill her stomach. Crying wouldn't bring her mother back. But as she walked back toward her house, she heard something that made her stop. 2 old women were sitting outside a compound, talking in low voices. "Did you hear about the girl from the next village?" one of them said. "The one who went to see the herbalist?" "Which herbalist?" "The one who lives past the forest. The one they say can change things, transform them, make the impossible possible." Adaeze moved closer, hiding in the shadows. "What did the girl want?" the second woman asked. "Nobody knows, but she came back different. Rich. Very rich. Now she wears gold beads and eats meat every day." The 2 women laughed and continued talking about other things, but Adaeze had heard enough. Her heart was beating fast, like a drum calling people to dance. A herbalist who could make the impossible possible. A girl who came back rich. Adaeze looked up at the stars one more time, then made her decision. Tomorrow, she would find this herbalist. Tomorrow, her life would change. She didn't know yet that some changes can never be undone. Adaeze woke before dawn with a plan burning in her chest like hot coals. She would find the herbalist. She would ask for help. She would escape the prison of debt that had swallowed her whole. But first, she needed to know where to go. She arrived at Mama Coco's stall earlier than usual, her eyes red from lack of sleep. The marketplace was just beginning to wake up, traders setting out their goods, children sweeping the paths, the smell of roasting plantains mixing with wood smoke. "You're here early," Mama Coco said, surprised. "Good. We have much work today." Adaeze nodded and began her tasks, but her ears were open, listening to every conversation around her. The marketplace was where secrets lived. If you stayed quiet and paid attention, you could learn anything. By mid-morning, she had heard nothing useful. Just talk about the harvest, complaints about the weather, gossip about who was sleeping with whose husband. Then a young woman came to buy palm wine. She wore a cloth wrapper that had once been beautiful but was now faded and torn. Her eyes looked hollow, like someone had scooped out all the light from inside. "2 calabashes," the woman said, her voice flat. Mama Coco studied her. "You look terrible, Obioma. Are you sick?" "I'm fine." "You don't look fine. You look like death is following you." Obioma's hand trembled as she counted out her calories. "I said I'm fine." But as she turned to leave, she stumbled. Adaeze rushed forward and caught her arm, stopping her from falling. "Thank you," Obioma whispered. Up close, Adaeze could see that the woman's lips were cracked and bleeding. Her skin felt hot like fever lived beneath it. "You need to rest," Adaeze said. "You need medicine." Obioma laughed, but it sounded like crying. "Medicine costs money. I have no money. I have nothing." "There must be someone who can help you. A healer, an herbalist." At the word herbalist, Obioma's eyes went sharp. She grabbed Adaeze's wrist, her fingers digging in like claws. "Never go to an herbalist," she hissed. "Never make deals with people who promise easy solutions. The price is always higher than you think." Before Adaeze could ask what she meant, Obioma pulled away and disappeared into the crowd. Mama Coco snorted. "That girl is cursed. Her whole family is cursed. Stay away from her." But Adaeze couldn't stop thinking about Obioma's words. And her warning only made the herbalist seem more real, more powerful. At midday, when Mama Coco sent her to buy more palm fruits from the seller at the far end of the market, Adaeze took a different path. She walked past the yam sellers, past the women braiding hair under the trees, past the blacksmith's forge where the air shimmered with heat. She found the oldest woman in the marketplace, Mama Neka, who had been selling dried fish for 50 years and knew everything about everyone. "Good afternoon, Mama," Adaeze said respectfully, bowing her head. Mama Neka looked up from her fish. Her face was a map of wrinkles, her eyes cloudy with age, but still clever. "Adaeze, the girl with all the debts. What do you want?" "Information. Information costs money." "I don't have money, but I can work for you. I can clean your compound, fetch your water, anything you need." Mama Neka studied her for a long moment. "What kind of information?" Adaeze took a deep breath. "I heard people talking about an herbalist. One who lives past the forest. One who can change things, make people rich. I need to know where to find him." The old woman's face went hard. "Why would a child want to find such a person?" "Because I'm drowning in debt. Because I work every day from sunrise to sunset, and the debt only grows bigger. Because I will die poor and broken unless something changes." Mama Neka was quiet for so long that Adaeze thought she wouldn't answer. Then she sighed, a sound like wind through dry grass. "The herbalist's name is Matsio Koro. He lives 3 hours' walk from here, past the forest where the silk cotton trees grow. His hut is on the other side of the river, near the place where the rocks look like a woman carrying water on her head. But child, listen to me carefully." She reached out and grabbed Adaeze's chin, forcing the girl to look into her cloudy eyes. "Matsio Koro is not like other herbalists. He doesn't heal sickness or make love charms. He makes bargains. He trades in transformations. And every bargain he makes comes with a price that isn't spoken until it's too late to change your mind. Do you understand? I understand, Adaeze said, though her heart was hammering. No, you don't. But you will. Mama Neka released her chin.
Go then.
Go and meet your fate. Just remember that I warned you. Adaeze bowed in thanks and hurried away before the old woman could say anything else. She spent the rest of the day in a fever of planning. She would go tomorrow before dawn, before Mama Coco could give her work. She would find Matsio Koro and ask him for help. She would finally escape. That night, she lay on her sleeping mat and tried to imagine what the herbalist would look like. Old and bent, tall and frightening. Would he have kind eyes or cruel ones? She thought about Obayoma's warning. Never make deals with people who promise easy solutions. She thought about Mama Neka's words. Every bargain comes with a price that isn't spoken until it's too late. But what choice did she have? Stay here and work until her body broke? Owe money until the day she died? Never eat a full meal? Never wear a clean cloth? Never know anything but exhaustion and hunger?
No.
She would rather take the risk. Just before she fell asleep, she remembered something her mother had told her once, back when she was still healthy, before the coughing started. Adaeze, my daughter, be careful what you wish for. The gods have a sense of humor. They will give you exactly what you ask for, but never in the way you expect. At the time, Adaeze had laughed. Now, lying in the darkness, she felt cold, but it was too late to change her mind. Tomorrow, she would find Matsio Koro. Tomorrow, her life would transform. She just didn't know yet what she would have to give up in return. Adaeze left before the first rooster crowed. The village was still wrapped in darkness, and the only sound was her bare feet on the dusty path. She had told no one where she was going. If Mama Coco discovered she was missing, the woman would add another 10 cowries to her debt for wasted time. But Adaeze didn't care anymore. After today, debts would mean nothing. The path to the forest was one she had never taken before. Children were warned to stay away from that direction. Bad things lived in the forest, the adults said. Spirits that stole voices. Animals that walked on 2 legs. Trees that moved when you weren't looking. But Adaeze was more afraid of staying poor than she was of spirits. The sun began to rise as she reached the first silk cotton trees. They were massive, their trunks thick as 5 men standing together, their roots spreading across the ground like giant fingers. The air here felt different, heavier, older, like the breath of something that had been sleeping for 1,000 years. Adaeze walked faster. After an hour, she reached the river. It was wider than she expected, the water brown and fast-moving. She could see the rocks on the other side, and yes, there they were, shaped exactly like a woman bent under the weight of a water pot on her head. But how would she cross? The water looked deep, and Adaeze couldn't swim. She walked along the riverbank, searching for a shallow place. The sun was climbing higher now, and sweat ran down her back. Flies buzzed around her head. Her stomach growled with hunger. She hadn't eaten since yesterday afternoon. Then she saw it. A fallen tree trunk stretching across the water like a bridge. Adaeze tested it with her foot. It felt solid. She took a breath and began to cross, her arms stretched out for balance, her eyes fixed on the other side. Halfway across, the trunk shifted. Adaeze froze, her heart stopping. The wood creaked beneath her feet. For a terrible moment, she thought she would fall into the rushing water below. But the trunk held. She forced herself to move forward, one careful step at a time, until finally her feet touched solid ground on the other side. She had made it. The herbalist's hut wasn't hard to find. It sat in a clearing, surrounded by plants Adaeze had never seen before, some with leaves that looked like hands, others with flowers that seemed to watch her as she approached. The hut itself was small and round, with walls made of red clay and a roof of dried grass. Smoke rose from a hole in the center. Adaeze stopped at the edge of the clearing. Her courage, which had carried her all this way, suddenly abandoned her. What was she doing here? What would she even say? Before she could decide whether to go forward or run away, a voice called out from inside the hut. I have been waiting for you, child. Adaeze's blood turned cold. How did he know she was there? She hadn't made a sound. Come inside, the voice said. We have much to discuss. Her legs moved before her brain could stop them. She walked to the entrance of the hut and ducked through the low doorway. Inside, the air was thick with smoke and the smell of herbs, bitter, sweet, sharp, and sour all at once. It took a moment for her eyes to adjust to the dimness. Matsi Okoro sat on a low stool near the fire. He was younger than Adaeze expected, perhaps 40 years old, with smooth dark skin and eyes that seemed to see through her flesh and into her bones. He wore a simple cloth wrapper and many necklaces made of seeds, bones, and small leather pouches. Sit, he said, pointing to a mat across from him. Adaeze sat, her hands trembling. Matsi Okoro studied her in silence. The only sound was the crackling of the fire and the bubbling of a clay pot hanging above the flames. Finally, he spoke. You came here because you are desperate. You owe money you cannot pay. You work yourself to death, but the debt only grows. You see no escape. Am I correct? Adaeze nodded, unable to find her voice. And you heard that I can help, that I can change things, transform situations, make the poor rich and the weak strong. He smiled, but it wasn't a warm smile. Also correct? Yes, Adaeze whispered. Tell me, child, what is your name? Adaeze.
Adaeze.
A good name. It means princess or daughter of a king. Does it not? She nodded. But you are not a princess. You are a debt slave. A child with no future, no hope, no value to anyone. His words were cruel, but his voice remained soft, almost kind. You want me to change that. You want me to make you valuable. Tears burned in Adaeze's eyes. I just want to be free. I want to pay my debts and live like a normal person. I want to eat when I'm hungry and sleep when I'm tired. Her voice broke. I just want my mother back, but since I can't have that, I want to survive. Matsi Okoro nodded slowly. Survival.
Yes.
That is the most basic wish, and yet the hardest to achieve when the world has decided you are worthless. He stood and walked around her, like a hunter circling prey. I can help you, Adaeze. I can give you something more valuable than cowries, more precious than gold. What? She asked, her heart pounding. He stopped in front of her. I can transform your tears into diamonds. Adaeze stared at him. My tears? Into diamonds?
Yes.
Every time you cry, instead of water falling from your eyes, perfect diamonds will fall. Each one worth more than 100 cowries. Each one enough to buy food for a month, cloth for a year, freedom from debt forever. It sounded impossible. It sounded like something from the stories her mother used to tell. Stories about magic and trickster gods and wishes that came true in terrible ways.
How?
Adaeze asked. That is my secret. My art. All you need to know is that I can do it. The question is, do you want me to? Did she want it? Diamonds instead of tears? She could pay off all her debts in a single day. She could buy her own house, her own land. She would never be hungry again. Never be tired again. Never be treated like worthless trash again. Yes, she said. I want it. Matsi Okoro smiled. Good. But child, listen carefully. Every transformation has a price. To change one thing, another thing must be given in return. Do you understand? What do I have to give? Adaeze asked, fear creeping into her voice. Nothing now. The payment comes later. After the transformation is complete. After you have lived with your new gift for a time. His eyes gleamed in the firelight. Do you agree? Adaeze hesitated. This was the moment Mama Neka had warned her about. The price that isn't spoken until it's too late. But what choice did she have? Go back to the village and work until she died? Stay trapped in poverty forever? I agree, she said. Then we have a bargain. Matsi Okoro reached into one of his pouches and pulled out a small gourd. Drink this. Adaeze took the gourd. The liquid inside smelled like rain and iron and something else she couldn't name. All of it, Matsi Okoro said. She put the gourd to her lips and drank. It tasted bitter and burned her throat going down. She gasped, coughing, her eyes watering. And then she felt it, a strange tingling in her eyes, like tiny insects crawling beneath her eyelids. She blinked rapidly, and something hard and sharp fell onto her hand. A diamond. Small, perfect, glittering in the dim light of the hut. Adaeze looked up at Matsio Koro, her mouth open in shock. He smiled. It is done. Your tears are now diamonds.
Go, child.
Go and claim your fortune. But remember, we will meet again when it is time to pay the price. Adaeze barely heard him. She was staring at the diamond in her palm, her mind spinning with possibilities. She was rich. She was finally rich. Adaeze stumbled out of the hut, the diamond clutched in her fist. The sunlight seemed too bright, the air too thin. Her head spun, and her legs felt weak, as if the transformation had drained something vital from her body. She made it to the edge of the clearing before she had to stop and lean against a tree. Her eyes still tingled, that strange crawling sensation that made her want to rub them, but also made her afraid to touch them. What had Matsio Koro done to her? She opened her hand and looked at the diamond again. It was real.
Solid.
Heavy for something so small. It caught the sunlight and threw rainbows across her palm. One diamond. Just from the tears that came when she drank that bitter liquid. How many more could she produce? How many tears lived inside her? Adaeze thought about her mother's death.
About the debts.
About every cruel word, every hungry night, every moment of exhaustion and despair. She had enough sorrow inside her to fill an ocean, which meant she had enough diamonds to fill a treasure chest. A laugh burst from her throat, high and strange, almost like screaming. She was free. After today, she would never owe anyone anything ever again. The journey back to the village seemed shorter than the journey there. Adaeze walked quickly, the diamond hidden in the small cloth pouch she wore around her neck. She kept touching it through the fabric, making sure it was real, making sure she hadn't dreamed the whole thing. When she reached the village, the sun was high overhead. People stared at her as she walked through the marketplace. Her wrapper was dirty from the journey, her feet covered in dust, leaves caught in her hair. Where have you been? Mama Coco's voice cut through the air like a machete. The woman stood outside her stall, hands on her hips, face twisted with anger. You were supposed to be here at dawn. Do you know how much money I lost because you weren't here to serve customers? Adaeze stopped. In the past, Mama Coco's anger would have made her tremble. But now, with the diamond around her neck and the power to create more, the woman's rage seemed small and meaningless. I'm sorry, Adaeze said, though she didn't feel sorry at all. I had something important to do. Something important? Mama Coco's voice rose higher. What could be more important than paying your debt? Add 20 cowries to what she owes, she shouted to her daughter. 20 cowries. Once, that number would have crushed Adaeze's spirit. Now, she almost smiled. I need to speak with you, Adaeze said quietly. Somewhere private. Mama Coco's eyes narrowed with suspicion. Why?
Please.
Just come with me. Something in Adaeze's voice made the woman pause. She looked at the girl more carefully, as if seeing her for the first time. Then she nodded. They walked behind the stall, away from curious ears and watching eyes. Mama Coco crossed her arms. Well, what is this about? Adaeze reached into her pouch and pulled out the diamond. She held it up, letting the sunlight strike it, letting it throw its brilliant light across both their faces. Mama Coco's mouth fell open. Her eyes went wide as calabash bowls. She reached for the diamond, but Adaeze pulled it back. This is real, Adaeze said. A perfect diamond. Worth more than 200 cowries, I think. Maybe more. Where did you get that? Mama Coco's voice was barely a whisper. Did you steal it?
No.
It's mine. And I have a question for you. How much do I owe you in total? All the debts, all the interest, everything. Mama Coco's mind was clearly spinning, trying to understand what was happening. 140 cowries, she said finally. Then take this diamond in payment. We're finished. I owe you nothing more. She pressed the diamond into Mama Coco's hand before the woman could argue. Mama Coco stared at it, then at Adaeze, then back at the diamond. "This is worth far more than 140 cowries," she said slowly. "I know. Consider the extra amount payment for all the times you were harsh to me, for all the times you added to my debt unfairly, for all the meals I missed because I was working for you." Mama Coco's face went through several expressions: shock, confusion, calculation, and finally something that might have been shame. She closed her fist around the diamond. "Where did you really get this?" she asked again. "That's my business. Do we have an agreement? My debt to you is paid." Mama Coco nodded slowly.
Yes.
"Your debt is paid." Adaeze felt a weight lift from her shoulders. One debt down, 11 more to go. She spent the rest of the afternoon walking through the village, visiting each person she owed money to. But she quickly realized she had a problem. She only had one diamond, and she owed debts to many people. She needed more diamonds, which meant she needed to cry. Adaeze went back to her empty house and sat on her sleeping mat. She closed her eyes and thought about her mother, about holding her cold hand in the darkness, about the funeral that no one came to because her mother had been too poor, too sick, too unimportant. The tears came easily. They always did when she thought about her mother. But these tears felt different, heavier. They didn't slide down her cheeks like water. They dropped like pebbles, hitting the mat with small clicking sounds. Adaeze opened her eyes and looked down. 6 perfect diamonds lay scattered on the mat, glittering like captured stars. She picked them up with trembling fingers. They were cold and hard and beautiful, each one a piece of her grief, transformed into wealth. She thought about what Mazio Koro had said. Every transformation has a price. But looking at the diamonds, Adaeze couldn't imagine what price could be too high. This was a gift, a blessing. Her mother's suffering, her own suffering. At least now it meant something. At least now it had value. She didn't know yet that some gifts are actually curses wearing pretty faces. By nightfall, Adaeze had visited 5 more people she owed debts to. Each time, she gave them a diamond. Each time, they stared in disbelief. Each time, they asked where she got such wealth. "That's my secret," she said, using Mazio Koro's words. And each time, she walked away a little lighter, a little more free. The news spread through the village like fire through dry grass. The poor girl, the debt slave, the orphan nobody cared about. She had diamonds. Real diamonds. She was paying off her debts with stones worth more than most people earned in a year. People whispered. People wondered. People watched her with new eyes, eyes filled with curiosity, envy, and greed. That night, Adaeze lay on her sleeping mat with 4 diamonds left in her pouch. Tomorrow, she would pay off the remaining debts.
Tomorrow she would be completely free.
She touched her eyes gently. They felt normal. They looked normal in the piece of broken mirror she owned. But she knew they weren't normal anymore. They were magic. They were her escape. She fell asleep smiling, dreaming of a future where she never went hungry, never worked herself to exhaustion, never bowed her head to anyone. In his hut beyond the forest, Mazio Koro sat by his fire and smiled too. The bargain was sealed. The transformation was complete. Now, all he had to do was wait for the price to come due. And oh, the price would be sweet. The price would be terrible. The price would be exactly what the girl deserved for trying to profit from her own pain. He threw herbs into the fire and watched the smoke rise. In the smoke, he could see Adaeze's future unfolding like a scroll. He laughed softly. "Foolish child, you think tears are infinite. You think sorrow is a resource to be mined. Soon you will learn the truth. Soon you will understand what you have traded away." The smoke twisted and danced, showing him things that would come to pass. And in her house in the village, Adaeze slept peacefully, unaware that her nightmare was only beginning. Adaeze woke to find her house surrounded by people. She heard their voices before she opened her eyes, whispers and murmurs pressing against the thin walls like hands trying to push through. Is she awake yet? How did she get the diamonds? Maybe she found a secret mine. Maybe she stole them. Maybe she made a deal with spirits. Adaeze sat up slowly, her heart racing. Through the cracks in the wall, she could see shadows moving, dozens of them, more people than had ever come to her house before. She stood and pushed aside the cloth that covered her doorway. At least 40 villagers stood in her small compound, their faces eager and hungry. When they saw her, they surged forward. "Adaeze, where did you get the diamonds? Can you get more? Will you help me? I have debts too. My daughter is sick. I need money for medicine. Please." The voices crashed over her like waves. Adaeze stepped back, suddenly afraid. Yesterday, these same people had ignored her. They had walked past her in the marketplace without seeing her. Now they looked at her like she was something precious, something they could use. "Please," she said, holding up her hands. "Please, I need space." But they kept pressing closer. An old man grabbed her arm. A woman thrust her sick baby toward Adaeze's face. 2 young men blocked her doorway, grinning like hunters who had cornered an animal. "Just one diamond," someone begged. "Just one small one. Tell us your secret. Share your blessing." Panic rose in Adaeze's throat. She tried to pull away, but there were too many people, too many hands reaching for her, too many voices demanding things she couldn't give. "Move back," a voice boomed across the compound. The crowd parted, and the village chief walked through, his walking stick thumping against the ground. He was an old man with gray hair and a face carved from hard decisions. Behind him came his 2 sons, both large and muscular. "What is happening here?" the chief demanded. "Why are you all crowding this child's house like vultures around a carcass?" The crowd mumbled and shuffled, but didn't answer directly. The chief turned to Adaeze. "Come with me. We need to talk." It wasn't a request. Adaeze followed him through the crowd, feeling their eyes burning into her back. They walked to the chief's compound, where his first wife brought them water, and then left them alone under the shade of a mango tree. "Sit," the chief said. Adaeze sat on the ground. The chief remained standing, looking down at her with eyes that missed nothing. "I hear you paid off all your debts yesterday. With diamonds?" "Yes, sir." "Where did you get them?" Adaeze had prepared for this question. "I found them." "Found them where?" "In the forest. By the river. They were just lying there in the rocks." The chief was quiet for a long moment. "Do you think I'm a fool, child?" Adaeze's mouth went dry. "No, sir. Diamonds don't just lie in rivers waiting to be picked up. If they did, we would all be rich. Everyone in this village would have walked that path 1,000 times. So I'll ask you again, and this time, think carefully before you lie to me. Where did you get the diamonds?" Adaeze looked at her hands. She couldn't tell him about Matsio Koro. If people knew her tears could turn to diamonds, they would never leave her alone. They would make her cry every day, harvest her grief like crops from a field. "I can't tell you," she whispered. "Can't or won't. Both." The chief sighed. "Adaeze, listen to me. I'm not trying to take your diamonds. I'm trying to protect you. When a poor person suddenly becomes rich, bad things happen. People get jealous. People get greedy. People do terrible things to get what they want. Do you understand?" "Yes, sir." "I don't think you do, but you will." He sat down beside her, his old bones creaking. "Here's what's going to happen. You're going to stay in your house for the next few days. Don't go to the marketplace. Don't talk to anyone. Let the excitement die down."
Can you do that?
Adaeze nodded. "Good. And child, whatever secret you're hiding, whatever you're not telling me, be careful with it. Secrets have a way of destroying the people who keep them." He stood and walked away, leaving Adaeze sitting alone under the mango tree. She went home, but the crowd had grown larger. News had spread to neighboring villages. People had come from hours away, all wanting to see the girl with diamonds, all hoping she would share her fortune. Adaeze pushed through them and barricaded herself inside her house. She piled everything she owned against the doorway: her sleeping mat, her cooking pot, her mother's old wooden stool. Outside, the voices continued. They would call her name. They would beg. They would make promises and threats. And when night finally fell, most of them left, but some stayed, camping outside her house like they were waiting for festival to begin. Adaeze sat in the darkness, her heart pounding. This wasn't what she had imagined. She thought the diamonds would bring freedom. Instead, they had brought a different kind of prison. She touched the pouch around her neck. She still had 4 diamonds left. Enough to buy food for months. Enough to buy new clothes. Enough to start over somewhere else. Somewhere people didn't know her story. Yes, she would leave. She would go to a different village, maybe even a town, somewhere she could be anonymous and safe. But first she needed more diamonds. Just a few more. Enough to ensure she would never be poor again. She thought about her mother. The tears came quickly, falling onto her lap with soft clicking sounds. She gathered them up, 8 perfect diamonds, cold and hard in her palm. As she held them, something strange happened. A memory came to her, sharp and clear. Her mother braiding her hair on a Sunday morning, humming a song about rain. But the memory felt distant now, like it was happening to someone else. The warmth of her mother's hands, the melody of her humming, they seemed faded, less real than they had been yesterday. Adaeze frowned. That was odd. She had always been able to remember her mother perfectly, every detail, every moment. Now it felt like trying to see through dirty water. She shook her head. She was just tired, stressed. Once she left this village and started her new life, everything would be fine. She lay down on her mat, the diamonds hidden beneath her wrapper, and tried to sleep. But every time she closed her eyes, she saw Matsio Koro's face. Every transformation has a price. What price? She had given him nothing. She owed him nothing. The diamonds were hers. Unless a cold feeling crept through her chest. What if the price wasn't something she gave willingly? What if it was something taken while she wasn't looking? She touched her eyes again. They felt normal. But what if something inside them had changed? What if every tear she transformed into a diamond took something else away? No, she whispered to herself. I'm being foolish. Everything is fine. Everything is perfect. But deep down, in a place she didn't want to look, she knew she was lying. Outside, the people who had camped by her house finally fell asleep. The village grew quiet. Somewhere in the distance, a night bird called out, its cry sounding almost like a warning. And far away, in his hut beyond the forest, Matsio Koro sat by his fire and counted on his fingers. First, the memories fade, he whispered to the flames. Then, the feelings disappear. And finally, the ability to cry at all vanishes, leaving her with eyes that produce diamonds but a heart that produces nothing. That is the price. That is always the price. He smiled and threw more herbs into the fire. The smoke rose toward the sky, carrying his laughter with it. 3 weeks passed, and Adaeze's life transformed in ways she had never dreamed possible. She left her village before dawn one morning, carrying nothing but the clothes on her back and 23 diamonds hidden in her pouch. She walked for 2 days until she reached Amura, a large town where nobody knew her name or her story. In Amura, she became someone new. She sold 3 diamonds to a trader and received more cowries than she could count. With that money, she rented a small house near the marketplace, a real house with strong walls and a door that locked. She bought new wrappers made of the finest cloth, bright colors that caught the eye. She bought beads for her neck and ankles. She bought a proper sleeping mat stuffed with cotton, not the thin reed mat she had used all her life. For the first time in her existence, Adaeze ate until her stomach was full. She bought roasted yam and palm oil. She bought fish and vegetables. She bought sweet oranges and sugarcane. She ate slowly, savoring every bite, amazed that food could taste this good when you weren't eating it with fear and hunger. The people in Amura looked at her differently than the people in her village had. Here, she wasn't the poor orphan girl. She was a young woman with money, with prospects, with value. Traders smiled when she approached their stalls. Other women invited her to sit and talk. Men looked at her with interest instead of pity. She told everyone the same story. Her father was a wealthy merchant who had died, leaving her his fortune. People believed it because they wanted to believe it. Rich people always had explanations for their wealth, and nobody questioned those explanations too closely. Adaeze hired a woman named Ego to cook and clean for her. Ego was older, maybe 30 years, with a kind face and gentle hands. She had 3 children and a husband who drank too much palm wine. "Thank you for this work," Ego said on her first day. "My family needs the money badly." Adaeze almost told her that she understood, that she too had once needed money badly, that she knew what it felt like to be desperate. But she stopped herself. That life was behind her now. She was different now. Better. "Just do your work well," Adaeze said instead, her voice cool and distant. The weeks passed in a pleasant blur. Adaeze bought more things. A wooden chest for her clothes, clay pots decorated with beautiful patterns, a mirror so clear she could see every detail of her face. She visited the marketplace every day, not to work but to shop, to be seen, to enjoy the feeling of having money in her pouch and choices in front of her. Sometimes, late at night, she would take out her diamonds and count them. She had 17 left. When she needed more, she would think about sad things until the tears came. But lately, the tears came less easily. She had to concentrate harder, dig deeper into her memories to find the sorrow. She told herself this was good. It meant she was healing. It meant she was leaving her painful past behind. She didn't notice that when she thought about her mother now, the image in her mind was becoming blurry, like a drawing left out in the rain. She didn't notice that she couldn't remember her mother's voice anymore, or the exact way she used to laugh. One morning, a young man came to her house. His name was Chitty, and he was the son of a prosperous yam farmer. He had seen Adaeze in the marketplace and wanted to know if she would accept his visit. "My son is a good man," Chitty's father had told her when he came to ask permission for the courtship. "He works hard. He doesn't drink too much. He would make a fine husband." Adaeze had agreed, more out of curiosity than interest. What would it be like to have a man court her? To be wanted, to be chosen, to be valued? Chitty sat across from her now, nervous and eager. He was handsome in a simple way, with broad shoulders and honest eyes. "I brought you this," he said, holding out a bunch of ripe plantains. "From our farm. They're the sweetest in the region." Adaeze took them, though she could easily buy 100 bunches if she wanted. "Thank you. I've been watching you," Chitty said, then quickly added, "Not in a bad way. I mean, I've seen you in the market. You're different from other women. You carry yourself with such confidence, like you know your own worth." Adaeze smiled. She didn't know her worth. She was worth 17 diamonds, maybe more if she needed them. She was worth more than everyone in this town combined. "Tell me about yourself," she said, though she wasn't particularly interested. Chitty talked about his family's farm, about the yams they grew, about his dreams of expanding their land. He talked about wanting to build a good life, about wanting children someday, about honoring his parents and ancestors. Adaeze listened but didn't really hear. Her mind wandered. She was thinking about whether she should buy that expensive wrapper she had seen yesterday, the one with golden threads woven through it. "What about you?"
Chitty asked.
"What are your dreams?" Adaeze blinked. "My dreams?"
"Yes."
"What do you want from life?" She opened her mouth to answer, but found she didn't know what to say. What did she want? She had wanted to escape poverty. She had done that. She had wanted to pay her debts. She had done that. She had wanted to never be hungry again. She had done that too.
"So what now?"
What came after survival? "I want to be comfortable," she said finally. "To never struggle again. To always have enough." Chitty smiled. "Those are good dreams. Simple dreams. I think we might want similar things." After he left, Ego came to clean the dishes. "He seems like a nice man," she said carefully. "He's fine." "Just fine?" Ego looked at her strangely. "Adaeze, he's one of the best young men in this town. He comes from a good family. He clearly likes you. Most women would be excited." "I am excited," Adaeze said, but even as she spoke the words, she realized they felt empty. She wasn't excited. She wasn't anything. She felt hollow, like a clay pot with nothing inside. That night, she tried to cry so she could make more diamonds. She thought about her mother's death, but the memory felt cold and distant. She tried to remember the pain of those hungry nights, those exhausting days of work, but it was like trying to remember someone else's life. The tears wouldn't come. Adaeze sat in the darkness, frustrated. She rubbed her eyes, pinched her arms, bit her lip. Nothing worked. Her eyes stayed dry. Finally, after an hour of trying, a single tear fell. It clicked against the floor, one small diamond. Just one. Fear touched her heart for the first time in weeks. What if the tears ran out completely? What if she couldn't make diamonds anymore? She pushed the thought away. It was fine. She had 17 diamonds saved. That was enough for months, maybe years if she was careful. She didn't need to make more right now. But even as she told herself this, she knew it was a lie. She had already gotten used to having money, already gotten used to buying whatever she wanted, already gotten used to the way people treated her with respect instead of contempt. She couldn't go back to being poor. She wouldn't survive it. It's fine, she whispered to herself in the darkness. Everything is fine. I'm safe now. I'm free now. Nothing bad can happen to me anymore. But in her chest, where her heart should have been warm with gratitude and joy, there was only a cold, empty space that grew larger every day. She fell asleep clutching the new diamond in her hand, dreaming of things she couldn't name and mourning losses she didn't understand. 2 months after arriving in Amira, Adaeze realized she couldn't remember what her mother's face looked like. She was sitting in her house, counting her remaining diamonds, 12 now, after buying new furniture and expensive cloth, when the thought came to her suddenly. What color were her mother's eyes? She closed her own eyes and tried to picture her mother, but the image wouldn't come. She could remember that her mother existed, that she had died, that Adaeze had loved her. But the details were gone. The shape of her nose, the sound of her voice, the way she smelled like wood smoke and shea butter, all of it had vanished like footprints in the rain. Adaeze's hands began to shake. She pressed them against her chest, trying to calm the panic rising inside her. It's normal, she told herself. People forget things. Time passes. Memories fade. This is normal. But deep down, she knew it wasn't normal. Her mother had died less than 4 months ago. She should remember everything. Every detail should be carved into her heart, like marks on a tree. A knock on the door interrupted her thoughts. She quickly hid the diamonds and opened it to find Chitty standing there, holding a basket of fruits. "Good morning," he said, smiling that honest smile that made her feel nothing. "I brought you mangoes, the first harvest from our trees." "Thank you," Adaeze said, taking the basket. The mangoes were perfectly ripe, their sweet smell filling the air. Once, this would have made her mouth water. Now she felt nothing about them. "Can I come in?"
Chitty asked.
She let him in. They sat together, and Chitty talked about his day, about the farm, about a new plot of land his father wanted to buy. Adaeze nodded and made appropriate sounds, but her mind was elsewhere. "Adaeze," Chitty said suddenly, "are you listening to me?"
Yes.
"Of course." "What did I just say?" She blinked. "You were talking about land?" Chitty's face fell. "I was telling you that I spoke to my father about us. About marriage. He's agreed to pay your bride price if you're willing." Marriage. The word should have meant something. Should have sparked some feeling. Excitement, fear, joy, something. But Adaeze felt only a vague sense of calculation. Chitty came from a wealthy family. Marriage to him would mean security. It would mean never worrying about money again. "What do you say?" Chitty asked, his eyes hopeful. "Yes," Adaeze said. "I'll marry you." Chitty's face lit up. He reached for her hand and squeezed it. "You've made me so happy. I promise I'll take care of you. I'll build you the finest house. Our children will never want for anything." Children. Adaeze tried to imagine children, small versions of herself and Chitty, running around, laughing, playing. But the image wouldn't form in her mind. She couldn't see it, couldn't feel it. After Chitty left, Ego came in to prepare the evening meal. She looked at Adaeze with concern. "You don't look happy for someone who just agreed to marry," she said quietly. "I'm happy," Adaeze said automatically. "Are you?" Ego put down the yam she was peeling. "Adaeze, I've worked for you for 2 months now. I've watched you. You never smile. Not really. You buy beautiful things, but you don't enjoy them. You eat expensive food, but you don't taste it. You're like someone walking through life asleep. I'm fine. No, you're not. And I think you know it. Ego came closer, her voice gentle. What happened to you, child? What made you this way? Adaeze felt something twist in her chest. Not quite pain, but the memory of pain, like an old scar that sometimes aches. I used to be poor, she said slowly. Very poor. I had debts I couldn't pay. I was trapped. And then, I found a way out. And that way cost you something. It wasn't a question. Adaeze looked at Ego, surprised. How did you know? Because nothing valuable comes free. My grandmother used to say, when someone offers you palm wine that doesn't come from a palm tree, refuse it. No matter how thirsty you are, refuse it. I was dying, Adaeze whispered. I had no choice. There's always a choice. Sometimes all the choices are bad, but there's always a choice. Ego returned to her yam. I hope whatever you gained was worth what you lost. That night, Adaeze lay awake thinking about Ego's words. What had she lost? She tried to make a list in her mind. Her memories of her mother, fading. Her ability to feel joy, gone. Her ability to feel sadness, going. Her ability to cry, almost impossible now. But what she had gained was worth it, wasn't it? She had money, security, a future, a man who wanted to marry her. Wasn't that enough? She got up and looked at herself in her expensive mirror. The face looking back at her was beautiful, well-fed, clean, draped in fine cloth. But the eyes were empty. They looked like her mother's eyes had looked in those final hours before death. Vacant, hollow. Adaeze touched her cheek. She tried to cry, to produce more diamonds, to prove to herself that she still could. Nothing happened. She thought about her mother. Nothing. She thought about the years of poverty and pain. Nothing. She thought about Mama Coco's cruelty, the debts, the hunger, the exhaustion. Nothing. Her eyes remained completely dry. Panic seized her. She pinched herself hard enough to leave bruises. She pulled her own hair. She bit her tongue until she tasted blood. Not a single tear fell. No, she whispered. No, no, no. She had 12 diamonds left. If she was careful, they would last maybe 6 months. After that, she would need more. But if she couldn't cry anymore, she couldn't make more diamonds. And if she couldn't make diamonds, she would eventually become poor again. The thought terrified her more than anything had terrified her in her entire life. She couldn't go back. She would rather die than go back to that life of poverty and powerlessness. Adaeze spent the rest of the night sitting by her window, staring at the darkness outside. As dawn broke, she made a decision. She would go back to Matsio Koro. She would demand that he fix whatever was wrong with her. She would make him restore her ability to cry. She didn't care about the price anymore. She would pay anything, give anything. She just needed her tears back. Because without them, she was nothing. Without them, she would lose everything she had gained. Without them, she might as well be dead. As the sun rose over Amura, Adaeze packed a small bag. She told Ego she was going to visit relatives and would return in a few days. Be careful, Ego said, looking at her with those knowing eyes. Whatever you're going to do, whatever you're going to ask for, think carefully first. Some roads can only be walked in one direction. But Adaeze wasn't listening anymore. She was already gone, her mind focused on the journey ahead, her heart, what was left of it, filled with desperate determination. She would get her tears back. She would keep her diamonds. She would keep her new life. She didn't know yet that Matsio Koro had been waiting for exactly this moment. That this was part of his plan from the very beginning. That the real payment was about to come due. The forest looked different this time. Darker. The trees seemed to lean toward Adaeze as she walked, their branches reaching like fingers trying to grab her. Or maybe they had always been this way, and she just hadn't noticed before. She walked quickly, almost running, driven by the fear that burned in her chest. 12 diamonds. That was all she had left between her new life and the poverty that waited to swallow her whole again. When she reached the river, she didn't hesitate. She crossed the fallen tree trunk without fear. without care. If she fell and drowned, at least she wouldn't have to face becoming poor again.
But she didn't fall.
She reached the other side and found the path to Matsi Okoro's hut exactly where it had been before. The herbalist was sitting outside this time, grinding something in a mortar. He looked up as she approached, and his face showed no surprise. It was as if he had been expecting her. "Adaeze," he said, his voice smooth as palm oil. "You've come back." "Something is wrong," she said, her voice sharp with panic. "The magic you gave me, it's not working anymore. I can't cry. I try and try, but nothing comes out." Matsi Okoro continued grinding, the pestle making a steady rhythm against the mortar. "Sit down." "I don't want to sit down. I want you to fix this." He looked at her then, really looked at her, and something in his gaze made her step back. His eyes were ancient, knowing, filled with a patience that felt cruel. "I said sit." Adaeze sat. Matsi Okoro finished his grinding and set the mortar aside. "Tell me, child, what have you noticed since I gave you this gift?" "I told you. I can't cry anymore." "What else?" "What do you mean, what else?"
What else has changed?
Think carefully. Adaeze opened her mouth to say nothing had changed, but the words died in her throat.
Because things had changed.
Many things. "I can't remember my mother's face," she said slowly. "I can't remember her voice. When I think about her, it's like thinking about a stranger." Matsi Okoro nodded. "What else?" "I don't feel things the way I used to. Joy, sadness, fear, they're all distant now. Like I'm watching life happen to someone else." "What else?" "When people talk to me, I don't care what they're saying. When good things happen, I feel nothing. When that man asked me to marry him, I felt nothing. It's like my heart has become stone." "Not stone," Matsi Okoro said quietly. "Diamond. Your heart has become diamond.
Hard. Cold.
Valuable. Beautiful. Dead." The words hit Adaeze like a slap. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying that the transformation is complete. This is what you asked for, Adaeze. This is what you wanted."
No.
"I wanted diamonds from my tears, not to lose the ability to cry. I wanted money, not to lose my feelings." "They're the same thing," Matsi Okoro said. He stood and walked to his hut, then returned with a clay pot. He poured water from it into 2 cups and handed one to Adaeze. "Do you know why tears are precious to the gods?" Adaeze shook her head, not trusting her voice. "Because tears are proof of humanity. They show that we can feel, that we can love and lose, hurt and heal. When we cry, we're alive in the deepest way possible. We're connected to ourselves, to others, to the world." He drank from his cup. "You asked me to turn that connection into currency, to make your pain profitable, to transform your humanity into wealth. But I didn't know." "You didn't ask," Matsi Okoro interrupted. "You were so desperate to escape poverty that you didn't ask what you would lose. You assumed the cost would be small. You assumed you could profit from your pain, without consequences." Adaeze felt cold all over. "So what happens now? I just stop feeling forever? I just become an empty shell walking around in fine clothes?" "That depends." "On what?" "On whether you're willing to pay the final price." There it was. The price Matsi Okoro had mentioned when they first met. The payment that came later. "What is it?" Adaeze asked, though part of her didn't want to know. Matsi Okoro's eyes gleamed. "I can restore your ability to feel. I can bring back your tears, your joy, your sorrow, your memories of your mother. I can make you fully human again." Hope flared in Adaeze's chest.
Yes.
"Do it, please." But Matsi Okoro continued. "If I do this, you will lose all the diamonds you've created. Every single one will turn back into tears. The money you've spent will be gone. The debts you paid will return. The life you've built will collapse. You will go back to exactly where you were before we met. Poor, desperate, alone." The hope died as quickly as it had come.
No.
"No, that's not fair." "Fair." Matsi Okoro laughed, a sound like dry leaves blowing in wind. "You want to talk about fair? Is it fair that some people are born rich while others starve? Is it fair that your mother died while the chief's wives grow fat on yams and meat? Is it fair that children work themselves to death to pay debts they didn't create? The world is not fair, Adaeze. I simply reflect that truth. Adaeze's mind raced. Go back to poverty? Return to that life of hunger and exhaustion and hopelessness? She would rather die. She would rather stay empty and cold than experience that suffering again. There must be another way, she said desperately. Something else I can give you. Anything else. There's nothing else you have that I want. The bargain is simple. Your humanity or your wealth. Your heart or your diamonds. Choose. I can't choose. Both options are terrible. Yes, Matsi Okoro said calmly. That's the point. You wanted an easy escape from your problems. You wanted magic to solve what only hard work, time, and community could solve. Now you learn the lesson everyone learns eventually. There are no shortcuts in life. Every path costs something. The only question is what you're willing to lose. Adaeze stood up, her legs shaking. I need time to think. Take all the time you want. But know this, every day you wait, you lose more of yourself. Already you cannot remember your mother's face. Soon you won't remember her name. Then you won't remember that she existed at all. Eventually, you won't remember your own name. You'll be rich, yes.
Comfortable, yes.
But you'll be no one. An empty wrapper with nothing inside. Stop it. Adaeze covered her ears. Stop talking. But Matsi Okoro's voice cut through her hands, through her defenses, through the walls she had built around her hollowing heart. You have 1 month, he said. After that, the choice makes itself. Your humanity will be completely gone, and even I won't be able to bring it back. You'll be locked in diamond form forever. Beautiful, valuable, and completely dead inside. Adaeze turned and ran. She ran through the clearing, past the strange plants, back to the river. She crossed the fallen tree without looking down, crashed through the forest without caring about the branches that scratched her face and arms. She ran until she couldn't breathe, until her legs gave out, until she collapsed on the path and lay there gasping like a fish pulled from water. Above her, the sky was blue and perfect. Birds sang in the trees. Somewhere nearby, she could hear the sound of children laughing. But Adaeze felt none of it. The beauty of the day couldn't touch her. The joy of the children couldn't reach her. She was already more diamond than girl, and with each passing moment, the transformation deepened. She had 1 month to decide which death she preferred, the death of poverty or the death of self. 1 month to choose between suffering and emptiness. 1 month to learn that some bargains cost everything, no matter which option you pick. Adaeze returned to Amira 3 days later, but she felt like she had been gone for 3 years. Everything looked the same, her house, the marketplace, the people walking past, but it all seemed strange now, like a place she had visited once in a dream. Ego was waiting when she arrived. One look at Adaeze's face and the woman's expression filled with worry. What happened? Ego asked. You look like you've seen death itself. I'm fine, Adaeze said, the lie sitting bitter on her tongue. Just tired from the journey. But she wasn't fine. She spent the next week sitting in her house, staring at her 12 remaining diamonds, trying to make an impossible choice. Keep the diamonds and lose herself completely, or give them up and return to poverty. Both options felt like dying. Chitty came to visit twice, bringing gifts, talking excitedly about their wedding plans. His voice sounded like it was coming from very far away, like he was speaking to her from the bottom of a well. My mother wants the wedding to be in 2 months, he said. She's already planning the feast. She wants to invite everyone from 3 villages. It will be the biggest celebration Amira has seen in years. Adaeze nodded, but said nothing. 2 months. That was longer than the 1 month Matsi Okoro had given her. Are you listening? Chitty asked, his smile fading. Adaeze, you've been strange since you came back. Distant. What's wrong? Nothing is wrong. Don't lie to me. I'm going to be your husband. We shouldn't have secrets.
Secrets.
Adaeze almost laughed. Her entire life was now a secret. Her diamonds, her bargain, her slowly disappearing humanity. all of it hidden behind a smile she couldn't even feel anymore. "I need more time," she said suddenly. "For the wedding. I need more time." Chitty's face fell.
Why?
"What's changed?" "Nothing has changed. I need time." "Time for what?" His voice rose with frustration. "Adaeze, I've been patient. I've been kind. I've brought you gifts and spoken well of you to my family. But you treat me like I'm nothing. Like I'm just another item you bought in the marketplace." His words struck something deep inside her. Not quite pain, but the ghost of pain. Because he was right. She didn't love him. She didn't love anything. She couldn't. "Maybe we shouldn't get married," Adaeze said quietly. The silence that followed was terrible. Chitty stared at her, his mouth open, his eyes wide with shock and hurt. "You're refusing me?" he said finally. "You're refusing my family's bride price?" "I'm saying I'm not ready. Not ready." Chitty stood up, his hands shaking. "I've wasted months courting you. I've told everyone we're getting married. My father has already begun negotiations with whoever speaks for you, since you have no family. And now you say you're not ready? I'm sorry." "Sorry? That's all you have to say?" He looked at her with something close to hatred. "You know what I think? I think there's something wrong with you, Adaeze. Something broken inside. You have everything, beauty, wealth, opportunities, but you're empty. Like a beautiful pot with a crack that makes it useless." He left, slamming the door behind him. The sound echoed through the house, through Adaeze's chest, but caused no ripples of emotion. Nothing. Ego came out from the back room where she had been pretending not to listen. "He's right, you know. About something being broken." "I know. Are you going to tell me what really happened? Where you went? What you're running from?" Adaeze looked at this woman who had worked for her, who had shown her nothing but kindness, who had tried to warn her. And suddenly, she wanted to tell someone. Needed to tell someone. Before she forgot why any of it mattered. So she told Ego everything. About her mother's death.
About the debts.
About Matsi Okoro and the bargain. About the diamonds and what they were costing her. About the choice she now faced. Ego listened without interrupting. When Adaeze finished, the older woman was quiet for a long time. "I knew it was something like this," Ego said finally. "Magic always costs more than it promises." "What should I do?" Adaeze asked, desperate for guidance, for wisdom, for someone to tell her the right answer. "I can't tell you what to do. Only you can make this choice. But I can tell you a story my grandmother told me." Ego sat down beside her. Once, there was a woman who had nothing. Her husband had died, her children had starved, and she was left alone with only grief for company. A spirit came to her and offered to take away all her pain. She would never feel sadness again, never cry again, never hurt again. The woman agreed immediately, and the spirit took her pain. But along with the pain, it took her ability to remember why she had loved her husband and children. It took the joy of those memories. It took everything that made the love real. The woman lived for many more years, but she was like a ghost walking through life. When she finally died, even the ancestors refused to claim her, because she had given away the very thing that made her human. "So, I should give up the diamonds," Adaeze said, her voice flat. "Go back to being poor. Go back to suffering." "I didn't say that. I said the woman in the story gave away her pain too quickly, without understanding that pain and love are tied together. That grief is the price we pay for having loved. That our tears water the gardens of our memories." Ego took Adaeze's hand. "But you, child, you didn't just give away your pain. You tried to profit from it. You turned your tears into treasure. And now you're learning that some things should never be sold." Before Adaeze could respond, there was a knock at the door. Ego went to open it, and there stood a girl, maybe 9 years old, thin and dirty, with eyes that Adaeze recognized immediately. They were her own eyes from 4 months ago, eyes that had seen too much suffering for such a young face. "Please," the girl said. "I'm looking for the woman who has diamonds. People say she's kind. People say she helps those in need. My mother is sick and we need medicine, but we have no money and..." The words tumbled out in a rush, desperate and afraid. Adaeze listened and felt nothing. Absolutely nothing. This girl was her. This girl was living the life Adaeze had escaped. And Adaeze couldn't even summon pity for her. "I can't help you," Adaeze said. "I'm sorry. I can't." The girl's face crumpled. She nodded and turned to leave, her thin shoulders shaking with tears she was trying to hide. Ego closed the door and looked at Adaeze with something that might have been disappointment or might have been pity. It was hard to tell. "You really have lost yourself," Ego said softly. "That girl could have been your daughter.
Could have been you.
And you felt nothing for her." "I know," Adaeze whispered. "I know." That night, Adaeze counted her diamonds again. 12 perfect stones, cold and hard in her palm. She had 2 weeks left before Matsi Okoro's deadline. 2 weeks to make her choice. But looking at those diamonds, holding them in her hands, she realized the truth. She had already made her choice. She had made it the moment she drank Matsi Okoro's potion. She had made it every time she cried for diamonds instead of crying for relief. She had made it every time she chose wealth over feeling. The bargain wasn't just about what she would lose. It was about what she was willing to become. And Adaeze was terrified that she had already become it. The days crawled by like wounded animals. Adaeze watched them pass from her window, counting down to Matsi Okoro's deadline with a strange mixture of dread and relief. 5 days left. 4 days. 3. On the 3rd day before the deadline, something happened that changed everything. Adaeze was in the marketplace, walking among the stalls without really seeing them, when she heard a familiar voice. She turned and saw Mama Coco from her old village, haggling with a cloth seller. Their eyes met across the crowd. Mama Coco's face went through several expressions: surprise, recognition, calculation. Then she smiled and walked over. "Adaeze, look at you. So fine now, so beautiful. I almost didn't recognize you." "Mama Coco," Adaeze said flatly. "What are you doing here?" "Trading like everyone else. But I'm glad I found you." The woman's smile grew wider, showing too many teeth. "You remember that diamond you gave me? The one that paid your debt?" "Yes." "Well, I took it to a jeweler to have it appraised. And do you know what he told me?" Mama Coco leaned closer, her voice dropping to a whisper. "He said it was worth at least 500 cowries. 500. But you only owed me 140. Adaeze said nothing. "So, I've been thinking," Mama Coco continued. "You overpaid me. By a lot. And that's not fair, is it? So, I think you should come back to the village and we should renegotiate our arrangement. I could use someone like you. Someone who has access to diamonds. We could be partners. We could both get rich." "I'm not interested." Mama Coco's smile disappeared. "I don't think you understand. I know your secret, Adaeze. I don't know how you get the diamonds, but I know they keep appearing. And if you don't share them with me, I'll tell everyone. I'll tell them you're a witch. I'll tell them you made a deal with evil spirits. I'll make sure no one in this town or any other town will ever trust you again." It was blackmail. Pure and simple. And the old Adaeze, the one who still had feelings, would have been afraid, would have been angry, would have felt something. But this Adaeze felt nothing. She simply looked at Mama Coco and saw a problem to be solved. "How much do you want?" Adaeze asked. 10 diamonds. "And then I'll leave you alone." 10 diamonds. Adaeze only had 12 left. If she gave Mama Coco 10, she would only have 2. That wouldn't last more than a few weeks. "No," Adaeze said. "Then I'll start talking. Right here, right now, I'll tell everyone." "Go ahead." Mama Coco blinked, surprised. "What?" "Tell them. Tell everyone. See if they believe you. See if they care." Adaeze's voice was cold, empty. "I have money now. I have status. You're just a palm wine seller from a poor village. Who do you think people will listen to?" Mama Coco's face turned ugly with rage. "You've become hard, girl.
Mean.
Your mother would be ashamed." The words should have hurt, should have cut deep. But Adaeze felt nothing. She couldn't even remember clearly why her mother's opinion should matter. And that realization, that she had lost even that, finally broke something inside her. Not her heart. That was already diamond. But some last small piece of her that was still human, still capable of recognizing what she had become. Adaeze turned and walked away from Mama Coco, walked away from the marketplace, walked away from her house and ego and everything she had built in Amura. She walked until she reached the edge of town, then kept walking.
Toward the forest.
Toward the river. Toward Matsiokoro. She had made her decision. The herbalist was waiting for her, sitting in the same spot as before, as if he had never moved. "You've come early," he said. "You still have 2 days." "I don't need 2 days," Adaeze said. "I've made my choice." "And what is your choice?" Adaeze pulled out her pouch and poured the 12 diamonds onto the ground between them. They sparkled in the sunlight, beautiful and cold. "Take them back," she said. "All of them. Every diamond I ever made. Turn them back into tears. Give me back my feelings, my memories, my humanity. I don't care if I'm poor again. I don't care if I suffer again. I can't live like this anymore." Matsiokoro studied her for a long moment. Then he shook his head.
No.
Adaeze stared at him. "What do you mean, no? You said you could reverse it. You said I could choose. I said you could choose within 1 month. But look at you, Adaeze. Really look." He held up his hand, and in his palm, a small mirror appeared. "What do you see?" Adaeze looked at her reflection. Her face was still beautiful, still young. But her eyes were completely clear. Not the warm brown they had been.
Clear like glass.
Like diamond. "The transformation is almost complete," Matsiokoro said softly. "You waited too long. You held onto the diamonds too tightly, used them too freely, profited from your pain too eagerly. Now, even if I took back all the diamonds you have left, it wouldn't be enough. You've changed too much, gone too far." "But you said 1 month. I came before the month was up." "The month was a warning, not a promise. The real deadline was the moment you stopped caring. The moment you looked at that little girl yesterday and felt nothing. That was when you crossed the line from human to diamond. That was when you chose wealth over humanity so completely that there's no way back." Horror filled Adaeze, not the feeling of horror, but the intellectual understanding of it, like reading about an emotion in a book. "So I'm trapped like this? Forever?" "Yes. I'll have money, but no joy. Comfort, but no love. Life, but no living. Yes. That's not fair." The words came out as a scream, but even the scream felt hollow, performative, like acting in a play. "No," Matsiokoro agreed. "It's not fair, but it is justice. You wanted to profit from pain, yours and eventually others. You wanted to turn suffering into currency. Now you've learned that some things are too precious to sell, and once sold, they cannot be bought back." He stood and walked into his hut, leaving Adaeze alone with her diamonds scattered on the ground. She picked them up slowly, one by one, and put them back in her pouch. They were all she had left now, all she would ever have. The sun was setting as Adaeze walked back to Mura. The sky turned orange and pink and purple, colors so beautiful they should have made her heart ache. But she felt nothing. Saw the colors but couldn't feel them. When she reached her house, Ego was packing her things. "I'm leaving," Ego said without looking up. "I can't work for someone with no heart. It's too sad, too frightening." "I understand," Adaeze said.
Do you?
"Do you really?" Ego finally looked at her, and there were tears in the woman's eyes. Real tears, born from real sadness. "I hope someday you remember what it felt like to cry real tears. To hurt and heal. To love and lose. I hope you remember what it meant to be alive." She left, and Adaeze stood alone in her beautiful house, surrounded by her expensive things, with 12 diamonds in her pouch and nothing in her chest where her heart used to be. The years that followed were exactly as Matsiokoro had predicted. Adaeze lived well. She never went hungry. She married eventually, not Chitty, but another man who wanted her wealth more than her love. They had children who learned early that their mother couldn't love them, couldn't feel for them, could only provide for them. She became known throughout the region as the rich woman with empty eyes. People came to her for money, for diamonds, for charity. She gave freely because she felt nothing when she gave, and felt nothing when she kept. She lived for 60 more years, wealthy and comfortable and completely alone. And when she died, surrounded by treasures but no one who mourned her, her eyes, which had turned completely to diamond, could not close. They remained open, glittering and beautiful and dead, staring at nothing forever. Her story became a warning told to children throughout the land. Be careful what you trade for comfort. Be careful what you're willing to lose for wealth. Because some things, tears, feelings, humanity, are more precious than any diamond. And once you've turned your heart to stone for profit, no amount of treasure can buy it back. The girl who went to the herbalist desperate for money got exactly what she asked for, and lived to regret it every empty day for the rest of her long, comfortable, meaningless life.